My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today, I want to offer my thoughts on Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. Now, what more can I say that hasn't been said already? So that's probably true. But I'm going to try to say a few things that haven't been said from my perspective. And if that is something that I can't do, that there are people who have already said this before, that's okay too, because I'm really just trying to get some of this off my chest. It's been a really tough week. We lost a lot of people this week, but let's talk about Ozzy. I've been listening to Ozzy since before I was 10 years old. I lost count how many times I've seen him solo with Black Sabbath throughout the years. And it's kind of this thing where you have these musical icons and you don't realize at time that there might be that they're not there anymore. And it's kind of strange. So it's been a little bit rough this week because then you start thinking about your own mortality. And it's like, well, kind of like I'm that next generation up to die. So that's kind of a rough thing. As a marriage and family therapist, I do want to talk about Ozzy's marriage to Sharon. I think that's something worth saying here. I do therapy on a lot of couples. And one of the things I think we could all say is that we want to be loved unconditionally. And we don't want to feel like we need to be perfect all the time in order to earn the right to be loved. And when you look at somebody like Ozzy, he was nothing but honest. He would tell you about his frailties. He knew that he had a lot of issues, and he was loved anyway. And I love that honesty about him. And in doing therapy with couples, I notice a lot of them have trouble forgiving. A lot of them have trouble getting past certain things. And this could be anything. It could be just doing chores around the house. It could be fights endlessly that end a marriage over like small things like dishes in the sink, different preferences on TV shows, family issues that might get in the way. Where are we going to have Christmas? Where are we going to have Thanksgiving? Your uncle over here is kind of a jerk to me, and this puts dents in the relationship. And a lot of these people can't seem to get around that. So I'm looking at Ozzy and Sharon's relationship. A long time ago, Ozzy said that when he was in Black Sabbath, he didn't make much money because the management screwed them over a lot. Now, of course, a lot of that money went to drugs, sure. But he said overall, it was the management that was screwing them over. Well, interesting, because the manager of Black Sabbath is Sharon Osbourne's father. So when we look at having baggage, let's say, to start off a relationship, that would be a pretty big one. Also, Ozzy had a previous marriage where he had 3 children already. So again, just these things here would be enough to derail a lot of relationships. But it gets worse. Ozzy had about 40 years or more of consistent drug and alcohol issues. And that didn't stop their relationship. They continued it. And by any stretch of the imagination, when you see them, you could definitely say what they both said, is that they were the love of each other's life. In 1989, Ozzy Osbourne was arrested for attempted murder. Who did he try to murder? Well, he was arrested for trying to murder Sharon, his wife. And that's interesting because most people can't keep a relationship together over some minor things. They got through that even though he was arrested for attempted murder. That's insane. So during one of his drunken or drug-induced situations, he tried to strangle her to death, but she never pressed charges on him. So I guess at some point, they just moved on from that. In the early 80s, again in a drug-induced psychosis, Ozzy Osbourne killed 17 of their pet cats. Now, that's a lot to get past. but they did. There was also multiple affairs, including a 4-year affair with his hairdresser. And as you go through this, Sharon said that she gave as good as she got, meaning that she was also physically abusive and she had also cheated and done things as well. So there's a lot to say here in terms of what people can go through if they really want to put in the hard work of staying together. So I think I'll just leave it as that. I think it's a very interesting relationship, and it's obvious that they loved each other, but it's obvious that they were both flawed. And I think that adds to what I was saying from the beginning, is that we all do want to be loved unconditionally and not have to feel like we need to be perfect all the time or to be judged all the time if we're worthy to be in a relationship. The other thing I want to talk about is Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne fans. I'm a fan of a lot of different bands, but these fans are a little bit different. What I've noticed on his fan page is that they all seem to be very positive and everybody loves Ozzy. And that's awesome. They followed Ozzy through his ups and downs, through a lot of lineup changes and a lot of changes in musical direction. And why do I look up to this? Why do I think this is special and a good thing? Because my favorite band of all time is The Who. And you can't even go on their fan pages without hearing them complain about how old The Who is and how they should retire and how they've switched drummers and therefore it's not worth going to go see them. You know, that's the other thing too, is that Ozzy at the very end obviously sang very imperfectly for obvious reasons. And to be honest, he was getting older anyway and he's had trouble for a long time. He obviously didn't sound like he did when he was in his 20s or 30s. But did anybody care? No, because they're respectful of him as a musician and that how he is offered this world so much entertainment that you go there to respect him for who he is. Because at some point you would sit in a room and there would be silence. And somebody like Ozzy would come in and be able to put a band together and put lyrics together and put together sight and sounds where none had existed before. And what he did was create something. Not only did he create songs, because there are people who are good enough to do that, but Ozzy almost single-handedly, I mean obviously with the other guys in Black Sabbath, but they created heavy metal. Heavy metal didn't exist until they came into the picture. So it's this thing where I look at these fans and I go, wow, it's always so great to go to see an Ozzy show because everybody loves him. To be fair, 30 years ago, he was having trouble. I mean, he could barely talk. He was very, very awkward on stage. He was kind of weird the way he walked, and you could tell he had issues. But nobody cared. Everybody loved it. Meanwhile, I see Roger Daltrey from The Who at 80 years old, still singing great, and everybody's like, oh, he doesn't swing the microphone like he did when he was 20. Or Peter Townsend, still an amazing guitar player from The Who, and they're complaining that he can't jump 4 feet in the air anymore and do a split. It's like, why are Who fans so unappreciative? I'll never understand that. So I guess that's what makes the difference for me of, again, why Ozzy and his fans are so special. And it's, even on that last concert he did, his voice was very imperfect. But man, if that wasn't moving. Somewhere in there, you know, it was almost like he was able to sing at his own funeral, in a sense, because he knew the end was near, and he did the best he could. He couldn't stand up anymore, but it was perfect for what it was. It was a man doing his best and having thousands of people just sit in the joy of watching a man do his best that gave so much to so many. That the only thing wrong with him is he had the audacity to get sick and get old, like we all will. So I really appreciate that about his fans. It was amazing to see that. The other thing I want to say about Ozzy is that It's really interesting when you're young and you listen to it, and they've got the name Black Sabbath, and you hear about him biting the head of a bat off and stuff like this, and you hear about the antics. But when you really listen to Black Sabbath, it wasn't really like that. It was not even close to being like that. I had a friend a long time ago. He had a Christian rock show at he was a DJ, and he was at a college station. And every once in a while, I would go and knock on the window to get in there, and I'd talk with him. And I showed him the lyrics to a Black Sabbath song. He didn't know it was Black Sabbath. And I said, hey, can we play this? It sounds very religious to me. He said, wow, that's great. Yeah, we should play that. Until I showed him it was Black Sabbath. And he was like, no way, I'm not playing that. And it's like this interesting thing about the way the media would say something, and then people would just run with it, thinking that Ozzy was somehow pushing suicide, or how he was pushing satanic messages, when in reality it was the exact opposite of that. And so, with that, I'd like to read some of these lyrics for you. So one song that got him in a lot of trouble, and they wanted to ban the song and everything else, and I think this was part of the PMRC back in the day when they wanted to put labels on albums. This song is called Suicide Solution. And of course, I'm not going to sing it. But here, let's go over some of the lyrics. Wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker. Suicide is slow with liquor. Take a bottle, drown your sorrows, then it floods away tomorrows. Evil thoughts and evil doings, cold alone you hang in ruins. Thought you could escape the reaper, you can't escape the master keeper. 'Cause you feel like life's unreal and you're living a lie. Such a shame, who's to blame? And you're wondering why. Then you ask from your cask, is there life after birth? What you sow can mean hell on this earth. You know, I think that all those lyrics are very insightful. But the interesting thing is, it's about your own decisions. That's the suicide solution. And being involved in drugs and alcohol is a way for you to slowly commit suicide. So this is an anti-drug, anti-alcohol song, and it's an anti-bad decision song. So how this got hooked up with pro-suicide, because it's got the word in it, I will not know. And again, they might even flag me on this for saying that word, because I think you're supposed to say unalive now. But let's try it. I'll just do the show over again if they cut it for some reason. Let's continue with the lyrics. Now you live inside a bottle, the reaper's traveling at full throttle. It's catching you, but you don't see. The reaper's you and the reaper's me. Breaking laws, locking doors, but there's no one at home. Made your bed, rest your head, but you lie there to moan. So as we're going over this, you're running away from your problems by using alcohol. And you're slowly killing yourself, but you don't see. Like, this is, again, an anti-drug and alcohol song. So I don't know why people have this opinion of Ozzy. It doesn't make any sense. So when you listen to it, and you see all these people, I mean, it doesn't matter now at my age, but when you're younger, people think, oh, you're into that horrible, evil music. There's nothing evil about it. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. So let's go to another song. This one's called After Forever. And this, it kind of tackles the idea about him being a Christian and yet trying to talk to somebody who is trying to make believe that God doesn't exist. And he's not sure what he believes, but he doesn't really think God exists. Here are the words. Have you ever thought about your soul? Can it be saved? Or perhaps you think that when you're dead, you just stay in your grave. Is God just a thought within your head, or is he a part of you? Is Christ just a name that you read in a book when you were at school? When you think about death, do you lose your breath, or do you keep your cool? Would you like to see the Pope on the end of a rope? Do you think he's a fool? Well, I have seen the truth. Yes, I have seen the light, and I have changed my ways. And I'll be prepared when you're lonely and scared at the end of our days. Could it be you're afraid of what your friends might say if they knew that you believed in God above? They should realize before they criticize that God is the only way to love. Does that sound satanic to you? Like what part? I mean, you can make a play to say that Black Sabbath was the first Christian rock band. Continuing. Is your mind so small that you have to fall in with the pack wherever they run? Will you still sneer when death is near and say that they may as well worship the Son? I think it was true. It was people like you that crucified Christ. I think it is sad that the opinion you had was the only one voiced. Will you be so sure when your day is near, to say that you don't believe? You had the chance, but you turned it down. Now you can't retrieve. Perhaps you'll think before you say that God is dead and gone. Open your eyes, just realize that He is the one, the only one who can save you from all this sin and hate. Or will you jeer at all you hear? Yes, I think it's too late. So we obviously have, he's preaching Christianity here. Again, why was he considered to be this devil worshiper throughout the years? I won't understand that. And I'll do one more song here. So let's go back to the very first album, a song called War Pigs. Now, if you listen to this, obviously it's anti-war, and he's also bordering on being a hippie here. So again, this is all about love and peace. Let me see if I could find the first part of this. Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields, the bodies burning as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. So the lyrics sound dark, but what is he talking about here, right? It's anti-war. Politicians hide themselves away. They only start the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that all to the poor. Time will tell on their power minds, making war just for fun, treating people just like pawns in chess. Wait till their judgment day comes. Now in darkness, world stops turning, ashes where their bodies burning. No more war pigs have the power. Hand of God has struck the hour. Day of judgment, God is calling. On their knees, the war pigs crawling, begging mercies for their sins. Satan laughing spreads his wings. So here we have, if you're going to say the satanic part, the only reason why Satan exists is because people don't do the right things here on earth. And he's talking here about anti-war and not having the rich go and make the poor fight for them for no reason and die for no reason. So I could go through many songs like this. But the point is at a very young age, I really appreciated the fact of how good Ozzy and the rest of his bandmates could write really great lyrics, and that they really meant something. It had nothing to do with what a lot of people's parents were talking about all this devil worshiping stuff. That's not true at all. So let me end this here. It's been a tough week, let's just say that. But his music still exists, and that's a good thing. I guess that's all I have to say for today. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe. Oh, one more thing. I did have a pug. I have a pug now too, but the very first pug I bought, I named him Ozzy. Just figured I'd throw that in. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.